Trigger warning. The following podcast contains content that may be deeply disturbing. You will hear first-hand accounts from parents and family members who have lost children to filicide, the murder of a child by a parent or caregiver. These stories are raw, emotional, and shared from the perspective of those who have lived them. They include details of unimaginable loss, system failures, and trauma. Please take care while listening. If at any point you need to pause, stop, or step away, we understand. This is Voices Against Filicide, a podcast dedicated to breaking the silence around filicide, honoring the lives of children lost, and working toward prevention, accountability, and child safety. This podcast is in honor of my two children, Alec and Lydia, who were killed in filicide crimes. This podcast is for them and for every child lost too soon. In each episode, we confront the realities that are too often ignored, elevate the voices of survivors and experts, and examine the systematic failures that place children at risk. These conversations are difficult, but they are necessary if we are serious about protecting children before tragedy occurs. I'm your host, Hope Houghton, and today's conversation is an important one. I am honored to welcome Dr. Cocchiola to the podcast. Dr. Cocchiola is a licensed psychologist with extensive experience working in high-risk mental health cases, including severe psychological distress, trauma, and complex family systems, where children's safety may be at risk. Her work focuses on identifying warning signs, understanding coercive control, and examining how untreated or poorly managed mental illness can escalate, sometimes with devastating consequences. What makes Dr. Cocchiola's perspective especially important is her ability to explain how coercive control, abuse, and serious mental illness can intersect and how these dynamics are often misunderstood by families, courts, and even professionals. She brings a trauma-informed, evidence-based voice to conversations that are often avoided, oversimplified, or misunderstood. Today, we will be talking about coercive control, DVRO, love bombing, mental illness, and how these patterns can be linked to filicide, and most importantly, how awareness, proper assessment, and early intervention can save children's lives. This is not easy, but it is necessary. Dr. Cocchiola, thank you so much for being here today, and welcome to Voices Against Filicide.
Thank you so much, Hope, for doing this really, really important podcast. It's so vital to get this information out, and I just want to say, and it feels so trite, but I am so sorry for your loss, the loss of your beautiful children, as a result of someone who, and maybe I'll start there, isn't actually mentally ill, but actually has disordered character traits. Because anybody who would be willing to harm a child, all in an intent to weaponize and retaliate against a parent, is really very characterologically disordered. And we do a bad job in society because we pathologize people for depression and anxiety and bipolar, and those are not our dangerous people. Our most dangerous people are the people that we wouldn't even recognize on the street as a danger. And they are putting our children at risk every single day. They are coercive controllers. They are predatory parents. And I'm very grateful for the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. So can you explain to our audience more of how you got into what you currently do? Like what made you want to kind of dive into this area that a lot of people don't talk about?
Yeah. So, it's interesting. I have a TEDx that has over 1 million views where I talk about a client I call Marie. And basically, Marie is me. And the story is that when I was very young, I found out that someone I loved dearly had been sexually abused by their parent. And I remember thinking, how in the world could such a horrific thing happen to children? And from then on, I just became a social justice advocate. I just was loud, obnoxious when I saw people mistreating, when I knew a family member was yelling at their child, whatever it was. And at 19, I became a volunteer for the local umbrella agency as a domestic violence, at the time we call it domestic violence and sexual assault crisis center. I spoke on the steps of Waterbury, Connecticut City Hall, talking about the problems and the harms inflicted by child pornography. This is before the internet opened up the world to so many predators. And I just started doing this work, and I was vigorously involved in it as a social worker and became a licensed therapist. And I teach social work every single semester. But here's the problem, Hope. I didn't even know I was married to an abuser. I had been dating him since I was 16. And abusers don't show up with signs saying, I'm an abuser. Right? I mean, really.
It's not like a flashing neon sign above their head. Yeah. I get that question a lot of. And it's just, I know you've heard these, but it's just really frustrating because they put the question on us as the survivor, as the victim of, well, how come you married him? Well, because he didn't have a neon sign above his head saying I'm an abuser. Like, I didn't know anything was wrong until I was too far in the woods and couldn't see myself out,
That's 100% right. And so I was 27 years and 11 months in, and that doesn't count the 7 years of dating the man.
Yeah.
And, there are different levels of pathology, and many abusers can be extremely covert for a long period of time. And then when they think you have done an egregious act against them, in some way you have pulled back the mask on them, they will retaliate. And some of them in the most horrifying ways. Many of my clients are dealing with the abuser, the predatory parent, as I call them, who may not ever, I mean, it's hard to say thankfully here, but may not thankfully ever murder their child, but will turn the children against the protective parent, will do what they can to, as I say from a clinical perspective, I'm a therapist also, is they will fracture the attachment to the safe protective parent. And this is all about power and control, isn't it? I mean, really, that's what it's about. Yeah, coercive control.
Coercive control. We're going to jump right into that. So, Dr. Cocchiola, many people think abuse only means physical violence, but coercive control is often much harder to see. Can you explain to our audience what coercive control is and how it shows up in marriages?
Absolutely. And in any partnership, frankly, we see it happening in systems. It's about one person or group of people exerting power and control over another person or group of people. I see it, and it's a stripping away of someone's agency, their ability to have voice, their autonomy. I see it as the underpinning of all abuse. When you think about what child sexual predators do, what do? They groom children. They build trust. They lure a child in, and then they use idle, it might be intimidation, but it doesn't have to be a threat, like you're going to lose everything, but it could be, well, I won't take you to the movies, right? Or you're not going to be able to play your video games. So there's a lot of different ways the coercion occurs. And it's all about retaining control. Not all coercive controllers are child sexual predators, but all child sexual predators are using the same exact grooming tactics as a coercive controller. So none of us, including yourself, went into a relationship with someone who maybe was mean or put you down. Mm-hmm. Typically, what we have are psychological tactics used to gain control. And those psychological tactics are love bombing, which, by the way, is part of coercive control criminalization law in the UK.
Okay.
So, when this happens in family systems, it's an exertion of power and control over everyone in the family system. Mm-hmm. Everyone feels it. Everyone knows it. Everybody's walking on eggshells. And the harm inflicted on the developing brain that no one talks about because you don't have a bruise, right?
Correct.
Right. And so I want to be really clear with your listeners. People say coercive control is hidden abuse. It's not hidden abuse. It often starts off
It's
hidden.
But then the mask slips.
The mask slips, and as time goes on, things become more and more overt. And so what I think everyone should understand is it's the underpinning of all abuse. Nobody abuses someone else just to hit them. If somebody hits another person, they're doing it because they didn't get their way. They needed to control the other person. Now, there's a little caveat here. There are some people who have poor coping mechanisms, and when they're angry, they do stupid stuff.
Correct.
And then they're sorry, and they get help. And that's the only people where batter intervention programs work. And that does not mean that anyone should go back to someone who ever battered them.
No.
But what we know is that overall, every single case of domestic abuse, virtually every case, is a situation where one person is exerting power and control over another.
Thank you so much. Oh, I just think this episode is going to be so powerful for the audience, and I'm so excited. I'm learning so much, and I've been through it, and I'm still sitting here with you like, yep. So there's a term called DVRO that comes up often in abuse dynamics, especially with victims, when victims try to speak out. Can you explain what DVRO means and how it is used against survivors?
Sure. It's a really remarkable term, or shall I say acronym, that was created by Dr. Jennifer Fried in 1997. It's been around a long time. And Dr. Fried was doing research on child victims and adult victims of sexual abuse. And she was trying to figure out why children were recanting, why a victim would back down. And it's because as soon as a child disclosed or an adult discloses, what do abusers often do? They deny. They attack, and they reverse victim and offender. Oh, that little girl came on to me. It was what she was wearing, or she's lying, or this mother is jealous of me. We're seeing that right now with that case that's out right now in the news. The guy who was on, he's a famous actor and director.
Oh,
and,
yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and he is saying that the mother disclosed because she was angry her kids didn't get another season on the TV show. And so, this is what abusers do, right? They deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. And we don't have enough information right now. It just came out, I think, yesterday, but it's an example. And I think what's important for your listeners to understand is that a lot of people sit here and they say, men suffer abuse too, right? And I am in no way denying that men suffer abuse, but let me give you a few stats, okay? All right. So first of all, the system in the world is built upon patriarchy.
Yes.
And patriarchy is really about a system where men do have more power in the world, period. I mean, we can look at the economy, we can look at the number of representatives and senators we have in Congress across the world. Men have more power. And so that means the systems are often working in favor of men. They just are, right? And it's the way that it's set up. And, let's just go back to the ERA, which basically we are trying to pass it, and we haven't been able to pass it. Women are still not mentioned in the Constitution. People of color are, people with disabilities are, but women are not mentioned in the Constitution. So this is the world we're living in, right? I mean, I think rape in marriage was allowed until like the 1980s. So it's really challenging to wrap your head around it. But I want the men listening, if there's men listening, to understand that we know men can suffer this. But the reality is that it's easier to exert power and control over women. It's just easier.
Yes.
The system works in that way. The system, it's institutional betrayal, it's systemic coercive control. You go to a judge, women are not believed. We know this over and over again when we look at sexual assault. Judith Herman's work, Truth and Repair, how infrequently women are believed for their own sexual assault. You could have video cameras.
Yes.
It doesn't matter, right? So one stat I'll give you is that we have a stat that says 1 in 8 men suffer domestic violence. Well, I'll tell you a story about me. I was home. My ex took my phone out of my back pocket. I went to grab it. I scratched him. He called the police. Guess who was arrested?
You.
Right. No, so, this is what happens, is that abusers will often corner. It's a coercive act. They will corner victims, right? They will push them to the brink. And then finally, I call it like a percolating coffee pot. Finally, one more thing. It could be a tiny little thing, and then the victim explodes.
Correct.
And that is provoke and record or bait and switch, right? And a lot of times these abusers are recording now, right?
Correct.
So
that happened to me where I would get so upset that he was like coming at me that I would, go at him, and he would have the phone out and record me. So I looked like the one that was the abuser when that wasn't the case.
100%. And then if the police come out, right, now that's a stat. So who's the victim in that stat? He is.
Yeah.
Even though he cornered you, and he's been doing it for a long time. And frankly, for any victim listening, you withstood years, months, weeks, whatever, of abuse that maybe was never overt, but it's impacting your psychological well-being. Yeah. It's a trauma. And of course, at some point, you're going to blow a gasket. I mean, it just makes sense. Yeah. And so there's that stat. But the other stat that I think is remarkable, actually two more, 35% of women suffer violence in their lifetime worldwide. 35%. So if you have 100 people, 35 women, 100 women, 35 women. Now that's violence. Mm-hmm. How many women are suffering other forms of abuse that is not even reportable?
Correct.
Verbal assaults, diminishing, stripping away agency, locking you in a room, not letting you go out in the car, taking your money, harboring your children, using legal abuse. How many? I'm telling you, that's at least, Hope, come on, that's got to be 80%.
80%, yeah.
And then, this is the key. How many children are living in those homes?
A lot.
I mean, probably, right? We have to assume 95%. Yeah. Maybe some of these moms, some of these women are single, so maybe it's 90%.
Yeah.
How many children are living in homes where they have no ability to feel safe?
Mm-hmm. I think I read a statistic recently that said 50,000 children a year are in homes with domestic abuse.
Yeah, and
50,000,
right, and I appreciate that stat. But really, how many of these cases are actually reported?
Correct.
I'm
so there's
thinking
probably
that
more.
Stat is humongous.
Yeah.
When I, as a therapist, am working and I see people every single day suffering abuse, and nobody calls it abuse when there's no physical evidence. The courts don't call it abuse. Child welfare doesn't call it abuse. And what do we know? We know that children growing up in these homes can't relax. Mm-hmm. Their nervous systems are off. They're being diagnosed with ADHD. They may, in fact, have it. They're having all kinds of social and psychological impacts in their life, right? Yeah. And we're trying to fix these things with medication. And the reality is that there's probably someone in their life that is making them feel unsafe.
Yeah, 100%.
It's just remarkable. There's one more stat I want to give you, and that is that about 95% out of 358 cases researched on the homicide timeline in the UK, 95% had evidence of coercion and control. Mm-hmm. Now, that doesn't mean the other 5% didn't. It just means they didn't have the evidence. So what do we know? That when homicides happen, of course, when filicide happens, right? I think there's the Center for Judicial Excellence has a post. They always keep a map up on their website, and they show the amount of children during divorce and separating times. Most recently, I'm doing a judge training next week, and most recently when I did it in the fall, I'm always having to adjust that number a little bit. So it was 989 when I did my training in November. I wonder what it's going to be next week when I do my training. And those are the ones that we have specifically connected and are keeping track of. But what do we, when you look at those stats, it says 70% are a father, a biological father. 21% are mothers when the children are killed. And then the other 12 or so % are other family members. Now that could be a step parent, a grandparent, right? Okay. But I want to go back to the 70% and the 21%.
Yeah.
Because this is very important. People are like, oh, mothers do it too. Oh, let me just tell you the story.
Not compared to fathers.
Not compared to fathers. And also this. When we delve a little deeper into the research and we find mothers who have killed their children, we are either finding mothers who literally have some kind of postpartum depression, or significant postpartum depression. I am not excusing any behaviors. I am just suggesting that we have someone who has a significant hormonal imbalance, or we are finding mothers who are in domestic abuse situations and they can't get out. They're trapped. And the last thing they want to do is perhaps hand over their children. Maybe they're going to be homeless. We have a case here in Connecticut where the mom, the next day, the abuser was going to be taking her home and taking the child to live with him.
Yes.
And so that, and what do we know about the 70% or so of men, these biological fathers? They are writing notes saying, I did this on purpose to hurt you. Mm-hmm. It's retaliatory.
Yeah.
It's literally dark tetrad. It is sadism. It is, I want you to suffer. So,
is there anything that people can see outwardly, because coercive control, can somebody see something that might be going on even when the victim doesn't see it themselves?
Yeah. You know what's a really big one? Mockery. Abusers will use mockery as a form of humor in front of others. And then when the victim says, that hurt my feelings, or why did you say that later on, they'll gaslight the victim into thinking that they didn't do that, or that they didn't mean it that way, and that the victim...
They were joking.
They were joking, exactly. So if you witness mockery at a dinner party, that's a good sign that something's not right. If you witness someone using a vulnerability, which again is like mockery, it's like, oh, well, when she was 16, she I don't know, ran over a squirrel, and she starts to cry, and he finds humor in it.
Correct.
Or he uses it as a way to make her and then the other thing, right, is just talking in a way. I think that's the problem, right? Not all abusers are like, oh, she's crazy. A lot of abusers will be like, I'm really worried about her. She's been sleeping a lot, and
Yeah, he tried to turn that on me and say that I was the one that was depressed and sleeping a lot or crying a lot. Yeah, he tried to.
There we go, right? And so I would say from an exterior view, if you notice a friend or family member being mocked and a vulnerability being used against them, that's a sign, right? Now, of course, the other very overt signs, right? Like she doesn't have access to finances, or she can't get her nails done or her hair done, those are more overt. Or the kids are like really thinking that she's unstable when she's not unstable. She's a wonderful mother. That's a really good sign, right? Yeah.
Everything you're saying is like, check, 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 like in my case.
Yeah.
How are coercive control and DVRO and love bombing connected to filicide risk? How are these overlap? How do these overlap and cause filicide?
Yeah, well, I think I would say the cause of filicide is a disordered individual who probably fits the criteria for the dark tetrad. And
can you explain that?
Yes. So that is narcissism, which can be grandiose, very often vulnerable, very often victim status. Poor person, they're going through so much. They take on the victim role. Machiavellianism, which is highly manipulative, able to manipulate systems, able to gain access to children even after they've done horrific things. This is what I see all the time. They're able to manipulate others. They create smear campaigns. Everybody believes them, and they go to work every day and look like a stand-up citizen, or they're well-liked by the people in the world, right? Nobody would believe, right? It's that whole, oh, really? Nobody would believe that, right? And so that's the piece that I hope people take away from your episode here, is that it's always someone you would never suspect. And victims, I had someone recently say to me, you used to cancel all the time when we would get together. And I'm like, oh, well, there's a red flag, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why did I have to cancel all the time, right? So, knowing that a victim also is performative, right, to keep the status quo, to make the family be okay, because we all hope that our family is okay. We don't want to believe that these people are that bad, right? So The third part of the dark tetrad, which is 4 parts, is psychopathy, willing to break the law. Certainly filicide is breaking the law, but I think a lot of victims think, well, he didn't break the law. And I'm like, well, was he stalking you? Was he on your computer? Did he see your emails? Did he have an app on your phone so he could track your phone? Did he track your car? That's stalking, and that's illegal in all 50 states in the United States. So guess what? That's psychopathy.
That's breaking the law. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So we minimize sometimes. We're like, oh, well, he's just checked, he has access to my email, right? So taking money from your accounts, right? Not showing up at a visitation or not bringing the children home at the correct time. That's willing to break the law. That's contempt of an order, right? And so we tend to get so used to it, we forget that it's actually a violation of the law. And the fourth one is sadism. I want you to suffer. I actually am driven to make you suffer. And if I could turn your children away from you or keep them extra time. I'm thinking of a mom in Georgia where her daughter got picked up for a visit and he moved to another state and she still hasn't seen her child in over a year because the family court system is not rectifying the situation of this father who has basically stolen her child. And of course, all of these cases, these horrific cases of children being lost to abusive parents. All the red flags are there for the court, and the court refuses to see them.
Yeah, that's in my case. There's red flag after red flag after red flag, and we just don't understand how somebody didn't stop and say, "Oh, this is not right. The kids are in danger," but nobody stopped it.
Yeah.
I know that you said at the beginning of the podcast that you believe that bipolar is not mental illness. Can you explain that a little more? Because we dive deep into that because that's what my estranged husband was diagnosed. He was actually diagnosed with bipolar 1 with psychosis, so he heard voices. And he had religious preoccupation, so he was talking about cults and demons and how Satan wanted to kill the children and all of those types of things. So do you believe that that's mental illness?
Okay.
What is your
So I want to be clear. Depression and anxiety and bipolar and all of those are mental illnesses. I like to call them mental health issues or some people call them brain disorders, right? Okay. So those are definitely what I'm trying to discern, and what I was trying to discern in the beginning of the episode is that I don't think it's fair to put someone who has bipolar disorder or depression in the same category as someone who is characterologically disordered and has a personality issue that makes them want to hurt others. There's malevolent intent. Now, I am not suggesting that your abuser didn't have bipolar with, these psychosis episodes. I'm not suggesting that that's not possible. But I'm suggesting I also hear over and over again, abusers will say, "Oh, I have bipolar," and that's their excuse for their rage and their lows. Yeah. Exactly, and that's and that is not what their problem is. Their problem is that they actually probably fit the dark tetrad, right? And that cannot be fixed, by the way. So this is, that's the problem, is that when we say somebody has a mental health issue, we know that there are certainly medications. And by the way, homeopathic remedies. Dr. Christopher Palmer has done so much amazing work, and he's cured people of significant depression just by diet and changing diet.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. It's like his book, Brain Energy. I'm doing if you can hear me, Dr. Palmer. So, and that's not to say people don't need meds, right? But there is certainly, I think, a big problem and you do a lot of mental health work. I know that, right? Around mental health. There's a lot of people who are getting meds, but not therapy.
Correct. You need both.
Right. And there's a lot of people doing therapy who don't understand abuse in this way.
Yeah.
So abusers can go to therapy and they could hoodwink a therapist because she or he is none the wiser that they're actually an abuser. And couples can go to therapy. And then this victim is made to acquiesce, as I was, and maybe I see you nodding your head, maybe you were too, to abusive behavior. Yeah. And so we have a problem where people are not distinguishing the difference between malevolent intent and manipulative behavior in my office and mental health issues. And I feel bad for people who have bipolar when abusers are going around and saying they have bipolar, because that's, like, in my opinion, like, they're nothing alike. A true person with bipolar does not have malevolent intent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like in our society right now, you probably hear it a lot, where people, just because they don't like the way somebody said something or did something, they call them a narcissist. And I'm like, no, they're not a narcissist. Like, don't use that word. So, like, they're using it so flippantly that it's losing its, like, context.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about that, but I've noticed that a lot. That people say that even when they're nowhere near being like a stereotypical diagnosable narcissist,
Right. I think first of all, there's a lot of people, we all have selfish behaviors, right? And, the reality is that it's a spectrum disorder. And that, some people are on the lower level of it and they're very workable. And they're willing, they can look in the mirror a little bit and make some shifts, and they're not necessarily driven to harm another individual. And so that's where, Dr. Ramani, she was actually just at my house last week, and we were talking about this understanding that narcissistic abuse is very different than narcissism, right? Because I can't diagnose someone with, I can say those behaviors certainly look like narcissism, but when someone becomes abusive and they are trying to control others, right? And then also adding in, as she often says, that, on that spectrum, it's like at some point you go from being a narcissist to being a coercive controller. You are driven to have revenge. And so I think people are using it too flippantly. I think we need more education. I think abusers are figuring out what to use to maybe have a judge feel sorry for them. And this is part of the problem. You and I are having this podcast right now, and we're having a wonderful conversation about educating people to be safe. There are groups of people meeting online to talk about how not to, how to navigate a system.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. That's a new one, audience, because I didn't know that people meet in groups and talk about that. So
yeah, a lot of fathers' rights groups, and fathers should have rights. But this is an interesting. I love talking about this. Hope so. If you don't mind, I will just
go for it.
Yeah. So if my husband and I, let's say I was not happily married, we decide to divorce amicably. There's no abuse. And I work 80% of the time in New York City, and he's been staying home with the children 80% of the time. And we're getting a divorce. Well, the best thing for my children is not that I get 50-50. It's that he gets 80%, because that's who their primary attachment is to. That's who they have been going to, their go-to person all along. We have stripped mothers of this. It's like the 50-50 go-to all the time. And the reality is that whoever that child has been primarily attached to, and there are judges making decisions on 225 when you have a 2-year-old who just finished nursing, and they're going back and forth between attachment gets fractured. I call it malicious fracturing of attachment. Abusers intentionally do that, but then we're not actually fortifying it by creating opportunities for children to really feel safe and regulated with their primary attachment. There's nothing wrong with a mom who's working 80% of the time in the city and isn't home a lot, as long as there's a dad who's there 80% of the time to provide that support, or a nanny, like some people have. But we live in a world where, 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
What? For a 2-year-old?
Yeah. But then they'd also look at the factors of 50-50, right? Like in my case, they granted unsupervised 50-50 custody when there was all of these red flags. And they just, they didn't take Alec and Lydia's safety into consideration, and they gave him his rights.
Parent rights over children's rights. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we had 5225. That was our schedule. Lydia was 5 at the time, and Alec was 7. Yeah.
Yeah.
So going back and forth like every day, pretty much back and forth every other day, it was a lot. So
it's a lot for them. It's their brains. It's a lot on their brains. And then add in that your little ones, they knew they were unsafe. Like it wasn't even like a fear. Like they all have fear. They all know it. They know how that abuser treated you. They feel it. There's this thing where I got to behave a certain way with dad. But there, I believe, must have been in your particular situation another level of fear.
Yeah.
Because at some point there was a knowing that he would do anything to harm, right?
Yeah.
And the body, as Bessel van der Kolk says, keep score. And these and children know.
Yeah.
They know.
Yeah. Yes, they do know. Going back to, you were saying that a lot of filicide cases or homicide cases are leaving notes. I know that in my case that wasn't the case. I couldn't find a note. And I talked to a couple other parents that have had filicide cases that there was no note. And I think that makes it harder because we didn't know why. Like, we obviously know that they wanted to hurt us, right, in the ultimate way possible. But there was no coming to peace with any sort of written statement,
Yeah. No, you're bringing up something really important. And that is that, this grief that you're carrying, and that even parents who maybe their children haven't been murdered, but they don't see their children anymore because they've been stolen through family court or whatever. Like there's a grief here that is really hard for others to imagine and to even meet you where you are, because no parent wants to look at you, Hope, and say, oh my God, that can't like that's what happens, right? There's a visceral reaction that can't happen to me, so I can't go near her. I can't, and I'm sure you do have people who support you, but overall, yeah, there is people it's a deadpan reaction, right? People can't handle it. And it's the same. This is I'm starting a grief program in my in my circle community, because this is what I hear over and over again. It's like people get tired of me talking about it, but I haven't seen my kid in 6 months. You can't stop talking about, you haven't seen your child in 6 months. And for you, I'm sure, this is why you're doing this podcast, right? Because you needed a space to be able to share over and over again and to keep Alec and Lydia's memory, to continue, right?
Yeah, to continue their legacy. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
And I the most positive advice I've ever gotten from parents who fight and advocate for their child once they are murdered is, you're the only one that's going to keep talking about your child. If you stop talking about your child, nobody else will. You're that child's voice, even though that they're gone.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah. And so this is, I think, right, what social media has allowed for parents who moms are speaking out very vocally about what's happened to them, and also trying to pass Caden's law, right, in the United States, and also other laws. There's Grayson's law in Florida. There's,
we're passing Alec and Lydia's Act in Arizona.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Well, if you need a testifier, call me up, because I've been testifying for these pieces of legislation. I'd be happy to do it.
Okay.
Yeah. No, this is... and I think, I'm going to this training in Arizona, by the way.
Yeah.
The AFCC training I'm doing next week. And I would just say, for me, when I have 1 hour to talk to these people about coercive control, it is not enough time. No. It is not enough time. But what I hope they get from this is several things. When something's high conflict, it's actually abuse. That's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, how can they begin to discern the character traits of both people in their courtroom? Because it's not hard to see if you look. If you don't look, it's going to be she's emotional, or she's worried about her children, or she's alienating him because she thinks her children are in harm's way.
In my case, I didn't even want to look at him. It was virtual stuff, so I didn't even want to look at his box on the screen.
That's right. That's right.
That was like a telltale sign, but my judge overlooked that. Yeah.
Right. That's right. And so how do we help judges and court professionals engage in conversations where they start to say, okay, wait a minute, when Hope met her abuser, what was it like from the beginning? Because there's a story.
Yeah.
He didn't just become this way.
No.
Right? And so what is, like, we need to unpack the parental, I call it the parental subsystem.
Mm-hmm.
What's been going on since the beginning, but also when the children were born.
Correct.
What has been going on?
That's the shift. In my case, when they were born, that's the shift.
Because your attention was taken away from him?
Yeah.
Oh, so for my abuser, the attention was taken away from me. The kids became his everything. And of course, what does that look like to the outside world? Father of the year.
Yeah.
No, he didn't, of course, thankfully, murder my children. But I want to be clear to your listeners too. They do different things. They get envious of the children. They and this is what I would say is I always say it starts day one. The moment you held those little ones in your arms, right? Alec in your arms, you're holding that baby. Your abuser immediately knew he could not love like you love.
Yeah.
And it ignited shame in him. And he said, aha, I know exactly what matters more to her than anything on the planet. I know what I could use. And so, again, we hope they don't use our children to this degree, but this is the pathology. And if we can help judges and court professionals understand that pathology, remarkable. And then the next thing, and it's none weighs less than the other, is the trauma to the developing brain.
Yeah.
When children are growing up in this kind of family system, it's not the victim's fault. But we have to understand these kids are at risk even if there's not one single bruise.
Yeah. And I think that's for me, is I had that misconception in my brain where he was abusive towards me in every manner of the abuse cycle, but he wasn't physically abusive towards the kids, but he was emotionally, psychologically abusive towards the kids. I know that now. But even when I separated from him and was sitting in the courtroom, I still didn't grasp that fact, you know?
Right. I call it like, I talked about it in my TEDx, but it's like death by 1,000 paper cuts, right? You know, I always say if your child, so you know the abuser abused you. You figured that out. That's why you divorced him, right? Okay. And now courts are forcing you to send your child off to that person. And do you think the abuse stopped? No. It just might be a little more covert, right? And then in post-separation abuse, it's more overt towards you, right? So, you know, we know coercive control intensifies post-separation for virtually every single case. We tell victims to leave all the time.
Yeah.
Yet we don't ask abusers to stop abusing.
Exactly. And also, you know, we can ask victims to leave, but they won't leave unless they're ready, you know, and so.
That's right. And I call it escape because and Dr. Stark, who I work directly under, he advanced the term coercive control. He's like, it's not even really escape because you're never done. You're never done when you have children in the process.
It would have continued. If this didn't happen, it would have still continued and gone on their whole life.
Right.
So that's what I'm realizing now. So, in closing, if there is one thing you want our listeners, especially professionals or policymakers or the regular community, to understand about coercive control and filicide prevention, all of the things we've talked about, what is the one thing that you would say?
Oh, boy. I think I would hope that people listening begin to commute. So if we can do 10 by 10, if 10 people share your podcast with 10 people, and we keep doing that, we have to elevate this conversation. It's an epidemic hiding in plain sight that no one is talking about.
Correct.
And I also would say that legislators and court professionals, you have a responsibility to protect children. And if you're not doing it, please just step down. Just step down. Find another job. There's plenty of jobs that you would make a ton of money. Just step down. The problem is, as you know, I co-authored the book Framed, Woman in the Family Court Underworld. I had to get the stories out of all of these horrific cases. And the reality is that there are people doing this work that don't belong in their positions. And so, and so I guess maybe the last thing, these are three things, but the last thing is I train professionals. And I'm trying to create what I call a sea of allies, where we have people who, you need a guardian ad litem. We've got someone who actually understands coercive control. You need a therapist. We got someone who understands coercive control. You have to go to co-parenting therapy, like it's mandated in Massachusetts. Well, go see this therapist, because guess what? That therapist understands the dynamics of coercion and control. And so how do we navigate this system? It's all strategy. It's a strategy. You have to navigate the system very cautiously. And you also have to understand that sometimes the abuser has to feel like they won something.
Yes.
So that they let go a little bit. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cocchiola. I appreciate you being on the episode. If my audience found this episode engaging and educational and you want to share it, please do. And please make sure that you subscribe and follow and leave a 5-star review and a rating. And until next time, I'm your host, Hope Hooten, with Voices Against Filicide.